Hi friends, welcome back to the Homespun Hive. I'm Shelby, and today we are in the chicken run because what I want to talk about today is how to naturally support your chicken's immune system. Now, why would you even bother at naturally supporting your chicken's immune system? Well, it really comes down to an animal husbandry standpoint. When an animal is in your care, it's your duty to make sure it's well and cared for. This goes double if you're planning to either harvest said animal for food or use its eggs or milk. When you enter into this relationship with an animal, you want to give it the respect it deserves, no matter what its purpose is. So while caring for that animal, making sure its health is optimal is just one of many focus points of that relationship that you will have with it. So whether your chickens are free range or in a run, they are going to come into contact with pathogens, bacteria, viruses, and things like that every day. Whether like I said, whether they're free range or walking around in a run, because that is just the way that the world works. They're walking on earth, they're around plants and places where other animals, maybe that be like other birds have walked, your dog, you're bringing in new bacteria and things like that every time you come into your chicken run. So all of those things are just a natural part of your chicken's life. But it's when your chicken's immune system gets out of balance that their body's not going to be able to fight off those pathogens or bacteria or viruses. I think it's just a really good idea to do some research and figure out what kind of things you can naturally add to your chicken's food or water, or things you can have in your run to just naturally support their immune system. Things like herbs that you can have in your back pocket, so you just have a better idea of what you can pull out should a situation arise, or if you notice that your birds are really stressed out. I just think it's a really good idea to know how to naturally support your chicken's immune systems. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about today, you probably have already in your pantry, in your house. You don't have to go to a special store to get these things. So that's what I really like about it. It's going to be budget friendly, it's going to be easily accessible, and it's just going to be easy to provide for your chickens. So before we get started talking about how to support your chicken's immune system, I think it's a good idea to know... Ah! Get out of here, man! Woman? Bird? It's not for you. It's not for you. It's my dress. Get. Before we look at ways to naturally support your chicken's immune system, I think it's a good idea to know what kind of things can really bring down your chicken's immune system. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is space. Now, the minimum requirements for space are going to be, in the chicken coop, is going to be 3 square feet of space per bird. And in a run, the minimum, again, the bare minimum, is going to be 8 square feet of space per bird in your chicken run. So if you have 10 birds and you're looking at 3 square feet of space in your chicken coop, that's going to look like needing 15 square feet of space in your chicken coop for 10 birds. And in a chicken run with 8 square feet of space per bird, if you had 10 birds, that's going to look like 80 square feet of space per bird. Now, if you have too cramped of a space for your birds, you're going to have easily passed infections. Your birds are going to be stressed out because they're going to be so cramped together. It's going to encourage behaviors like feather picking or bullying, resource hogging, and things like that. Just having more space is better. For us right now, our chicken run is 15 by 20 feet. That's 300 square feet, and we have 12 chickens, and the minimum for 12 chickens would be 96 square feet out in the run. So we are well above the average, and I think it's a good amount of space. We don't deal with any of those behaviors. So another immune system bog downer, I just made that up, is going to be stress, which I kind of talked about when we talked about space, right? Lack of space is going to cause stress, but some other stress factors are going to be if your birds are around any other more aggressive animals. If you have a dog who's constantly running up to your chicken run and barking at them and your chickens are afraid, that's going to cause stress. If you have hawk swooping down on your chicken run and no cover or a place for them to hide, they're probably going to be pretty stressed out. They're not going to be very happy. So that's going to lower their immune system. Just like any plant even, or any animal, really anything does not respond well to stress, right? It just really puts a load on your body and it can't perform its best. Another stress causer is going to be access to light in the outdoors, right? If your chickens are kept in a coop all day and they don't have access to go outside, they're going to be really stressed out. Animals, living things, need access to a good amount of light and just outside time. These are animals. They cannot be cooped up in an indoor space their entire lives. That's why it's good to always support your local farm fresh eggs, because those are going to usually be people who have their chickens in an outdoor area versus your conventional eggs in the grocery store might be birds who are confined to a small setting and not even have access to outside. Those birds are going to be stressed out. Another component of your chicken's life that can really stress them out is unclean food or water. You want to make sure that your food is stored in a dry place that's not going to have any moisture in it, because your chicken feed can start getting mold, and that's not going to be healthy for your birds. As well as their water, you want to make sure that their water is clean. You don't want to see any green algae growing around the bottom, because having things like dirty water is just really going to give parasites and bacteria really easy access into your chicken's body. Same with the mold on the food, just easy access for things that should not be in your bird's body. The next immune lowering component for your chickens is going to be how clean your chicken run and your chicken coop are, right? So if you have a chicken coop and you let those droppings pile up and you don't have any sort of management system, you just let them pile up and clean it once a week and they're just knee deep in their droppings all the time, again, you're going to be encouraging viruses and parasites you're going to be welcoming those viruses and parasites into that environment, and you definitely don't want that. Same with your chicken run, right? So some people choose to scoop the droppings out daily, weekly, twice a week, whatever that may be. What we do here, which works really well for us right now, is the deep litter method or the deep bedding method. We use the deep bedding method in the chicken coop, where you pile in a very generous layer of wood shavings, and as the chickens soil them, you just kind of mix the droppings into the shavings and add more. Now we live in a really dry climate right now. I'm zone 9B, we're in Southern California, so I don't have to deal with humidity. If we had more humidity, I might have to worry and tweak my system a little more, and you might too if you live in a more humid or wet climate. But so my routine for the chicken coop is just to go in, see how many droppings are really in there, and if it's more than I'm comfortable with, then I just go ahead and stir it around, and if the shavings just don't have the right ratio of droppings to shavings that I like, then I'm just going to go add more shavings, or even just toss them out the chicken coop door that comes into our run to, just get some of that out and put some more shavings in. Our chicken coop does not smell. Our chicken run does not smell. We do the same thing in the chicken run. This is just shredded wood from our property, and we have a hefty layer in here, and occasionally, maybe like once a week, I go through with a metal rake and I just kind of stir it up and help those droppings get worked into the dirt below. It's like a natural composting system, and it actually encourages the right kind of, I don't want like pathogens that are going to go and eat those bad viruses that will cause chickens to be sick if the droppings did pile up. It's just like a symbiotic relationship if you work it right. But there's a lot of components to that, and you really need to look at where you live, what your climate is like, and go from there. So you want to make sure that your droppings are not piling up. If you have a lot of foul smells, if you have a ton of flies, you really need to go and look at your method and maybe think about adding some tweaks to that, because You don't want to encourage the wrong types of pathogens or bacteria to be thriving where your chickens are living day in and day out. So quick recap on that. Things that are gonna lower your chicken's immune system are lack of space, high stress, dirty food and water, and unclean chicken coops and chicken runs. Okay, now let's talk about some natural ways to support your chicken's immune system. The first one I'm going to talk about is garlic. Now, garlic has actually been scientifically studied on laying hens and broiler chickens to have really good results. If you go over to my blog post, I'm going to put a link below. I actually cite my scientific sources that I've done this research in. So there's components in garlic that have been studied to show therapeutic and antioxidant effects in broilers and laying hens. Garlic has also been found to have stimulatory effects on the immune system cell functions by protecting them from oxidative stress. The active compound found in garlic has well-known antimicrobial properties and can decrease gut pathogenic populations. Garlic has also been shown to be antiviral, antiparasitic, and antifungal, and even antibacterial in chickens too. There's even been studies with chickens where adding garlic to your chicken's diet actually increases the yolk weight in their eggs, which is pretty cool, right? So, how do I give my chickens garlic? Well, it's pretty easy. All I do is grab some garlic from the store, some raw garlic. I fill up a half-gallon mason jar with water, and then I take my garlic press and I just press like 2 to 4 garlic cloves into that water. I put like a cheesecloth lid or something over the top so the gases can still escape, and I let that sit overnight, and then the next day I strain out the garlic and just pour that garlic water into a new waterer and put it in my chicken run. You want to make sure that you also leave your chickens the option to drink plain water along with the garlic water in case they're turned off from that new garlic water. You don't want them to get dehydrated. And this isn't something that I do every week. I just kind of look and do as I see fit for my own flock. So what about garlic powder? Do you have to use raw garlic? No, you don't have to use raw garlic. And I don't see anything wrong with garlic powder, but I think that in the processing of turning raw garlic into garlic powder, a lot of the components are lost that make it antiviral, antifungal, and antiparasitic. So I do think it's helpful, but I don't think it's as powerful as raw garlic. But I see nothing wrong with sprinkling it into your chicken's feed or anything like that. I think they're still going to benefit from garlic powder if you don't have access to raw garlic. The next way I'm going to talk about how to support your chicken's immune system is using herbs. Herbs are going to be so powerful and they are so easy to access. You can grow a lot of them in your own yard. You can grow them even in a box in your kitchen window. And like I said, you can go to the grocery store, pick them up fresh, pick them up in the spices section dried. They're just going to be easily accessible and they're really powerful. So I'm just going to mention a few of the herbs that I like to use for supporting my chicken's immune system. This is not an exhaustive list. There are so many more, but I'm just going to talk about a few that I use. So parsley is high in vitamins K, D, A, and folate. It also contains magnesium, iron, and selenium, and also it's going to promote your circulatory system development for chickens. Oregano helps to establish a strong respiratory system and is also considered to have the following properties of being antibiotic, antioxidant, and antibacterial. Basil is another one that I really like to grow just because it smells good. I always try to have that in my garden, but it's going to be, basil's going to have anti-inflammatory properties as well as antibacterial properties, and it's going to support the mucous membranes in your chickens, which chickens seem to, from what I've read, have a higher history of having respiratory illnesses. So anything that you can use to support those mucous membranes in their body, I think is just really going to go far in supporting their respiratory system as a whole as well. Echinacea or coneflower is another one. I have that growing in my garden. You can grow it too and use it for your chickens. Just note that the following properties that I'm going to talk about have really been shown to be most powerful when you take the root of the echinacea and dry it and turn it into a powder. You can still dry the seeds or the petals and throw it in their feed. That's still going to be beneficial, but the effects from the leaves and petals are lower than drying out the root. So echinacea is going to stimulate the immune system, and it's also been shown to decrease the lesions in the intestines of poultry infected with coccidia, which is pretty wild because coccidia is a really bad disease that I think it kills a lot of chicks every year. Sage is going to be another herb that you can easily grow in your garden. It's going to be anti-parasitic and antibacterial, and it's going to support the immune system too. Now, you can choose to dry these herbs, or you can feed them fresh. You can feed them as treats. You can sprinkle it into your bird's feed. It's really up to you on how you want to do it. I think as long as you are adding some herbs for your chickens, you're doing good. The next component that I'm going to mention for supporting your chicken's immune system naturally is one that I'm a big fan of, which is feeding your chickens fermented feed. Now I have a whole another video and a blog post to go along with this, so I'm not going to thoroughly talk about it, but I will mention some of the key points for fermented feed. Fermentation will add probiotics to the chicken feed, which will also add diversity to the gut flora and to help minimize bad bacteria. Fermented chicken feed will be better absorbed by your chickens, which equals better nutrition, which then equals healthier chickens. Once fermented, vitamins and minerals contained in your chicken's feed will be more bioavailable, boosting the nutritional value of the feed itself for your chickens. So by feeding your chickens fermented feed, you're going to be essentially upping their nutritional intake and supporting their immune system. They're going to be getting some probiotics in that, and I'm sure, as most of us know, probiotics are a huge key in gut health, which also translates back into your overall health. So I think that's a huge factor of keeping your chickens healthy. So maybe you're thinking about supplements then. I think supplements are a good idea to keep in your back pocket as a part of your chicken's first aid kit, if you will. I definitely have some supplements. The one that I like the most is called Rooster Booster. I'll leave a link below for that, but it's just a powdered formulation of electrolytes, minerals, and vitamins, and I specifically liked that Rooster Booster because it had a good ratio of vitamins that you want to see when you're trying to get a sick chicken back into health. So with these natural ways to support your chicken's immune system, I don't do all of these things all the time. I don't do them day in and day out. I definitely look at my flock and consider what's going on with them, if there's any stressors that they're coming up against, if I notice anyone struggling with anything. I really just take into account what's going on with my flock and trust my gut and get a hold on what the big picture is with these herbs or supplements or the garlic. If you do your research and you figure out when the best time to use these things are, then you're going to know. You're going to be prepared. You're going to have these things in your back pocket and know when to pull them out. I don't think it's wise for anyone or any animal to stay on supplements long term all the time. So it's something that I'm constantly switching out and rotating, but it's nothing that stresses me out. They go weeks without any supplements, and sometimes they'll go a month where they get something every week. It's really going to depend on your flock and their age and their stressors and things like that. So let's recap real quick on the ways to naturally support your chicken's immune system. The first one we talked about was using garlic water for your birds. The second one was feeding herbs, whether that be dried or fresh. And the third one was feeding fermented feed as often as you can, and also occasionally adding supplements. Alright guys, well thanks for hanging out with me while I talk about ways to naturally support your chicken's immune system. I hope that you learned a little bit of something from this and maybe the courage to try implementing some of these things for your flock. Maybe grow some basil, press some garlic into the water, grab a supplement. Thanks for listening. I'm so glad I could share this with you guys. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already.